For decades, Mortal Kombat has been the go-to game for brutal brawls and gory deaths, but not every game has been a shiner. Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're ranking every Mortal Kombat game. For this list, we'll be ordering the Mortal Kombat games from the worst to the best. However, we'll only be counting the main series. Really, must we include mythologies and special forces? We all know where those games belong. Number 11, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe.
Your illusion does not fool me, Shang Tsung.
Round 1, fight!
Let's face it, this was not a Mortal Kombat game. Considered to be the 8th entry in the main series, MK vs DC was living proof for why the franchise could never dip below an M rating. As if the title wasn't frustrating enough with its crappy hitboxes and half-baked story, it lacked what makes a Mortal Kombat game: the gore. Sure, it had some fatalities or heroic brutalities, whatever that nonsense is supposed to mean, but they all sucked. At least every other game on this list tried to make something crazy. This game, on the other hand, get out of here!
The Joker wins. Fatality.
Number 10, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Even though the game had a few ideas, like the shock reveal of killing Liu Kang at the start, the complete package left us breathing out of a sigh of dismay. Overall, Deadly Alliance felt unfinished and unpolished. Animations were stiff, character designs felt lazy, and combos were not exciting to watch. On top of that, each character only had one fatality. It also didn't help that the two final bosses were Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, as they formed a Deadly Alliance, and they are the biggest threat at this point in the story. But this felt lazy and uninspired.
Finish him! Li Mei wins.
Number 9, Mortal Kombat 4. While we aren't happy about the game getting rid of digitized axes, we can't knock MK4 around too much. The game made its foray into the third dimension a little too late, struggling to replicate the success of earlier examples like Tekken, Virtua Fighter, or Dead or Alive. Overall, it's a very game. The combat is okay, and the graphics are alright for the time, and the roster is decent. Although we can't say the same for the fatalities and the character endings, especially Jax's.
This is brutality! You can't do it!
Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
Number 8, Mortal Kombat Armageddon. When you stand back, Armageddon had some really good ideas. It featured every character to ever appear in a Mortal Kombat game and implemented a feature where users can create fatalities and their own fighters. However, you have to step really far back to really appreciate this. One step closer and you'll notice how abysmal it truly is. Armageddon's roster featured many clone characters with a handful of recycled animations and a creator fatality system that was nothing more than generic moves jumbled together. It also didn't help that the game was incredibly unbalanced and made it easy to win by button mashing. Had it not been for the reboot, this game could have been the franchise's own Armageddon. Number 7, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. The original MK3 was a bit of a mess. The combat was unbalanced, Cabal was broken, and the game forgot Scorpion. That's why when people talk about MK3, they're really talking about Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. This version of the game fixed everything by improving controls, nerfing certain characters, and remembering Scorpion existed, along with Reptile, and Katana, and Jade, and a clone version of Sub-Zero. Basically, there were a lot of colored ninjas here. As terrific as the game was back when it launched in 1995, It hasn't aged all too well in the visuals, especially when it comes to the fatalities. There isn't much else to complain about Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, but we'd rather play many of the other titles, if given the option.
Flawless victory.
Number 6. Mortal Kombat 2. Back in the early 90s, there just wasn't anything like Mortal Kombat. This came from a time where not many games were implementing an insane amount of blood and gore. And while the graphics and combat system hasn't aged all too well, it looked realistic back then. If you squint really hard, it may not have the same depth as the modern titles, but it's still nostalgic to boot up every once in a while. All franchises have to start somewhere, and this debut title made one hell of a first impression. Number 5. Mortal Kombat Deception. Although stumbling through mishaps like Mortal Kombat 4 and Deadly Alliance, the odds were clearly stacked against Deception. Surprisingly enough, this was the best 3D format for Mortal Kombat. With more refined controls than its predecessors and better combos, one will notice that this is where Ed Boon and company started to understand the engine a bit more. On top of that, the story mode, Mortal Kombat Conquest, felt like a whole other game, allowing players to complete missions, find treasure chests, and encounter their favorite combatants between the brawling. Mix in an awesome intro and final boss, and Deception would become the best 3D fighter in the franchise's history. Number 4. Mortal Kombat 11. Admittedly, we're a bit divided on this one. Yes, the switchboard and progression was not great at launch, but Mortal Kombat 11 did so many other things right. For starters, the story mode was compelling until the very end, and wrapped up the narrative in a pretty big bow. Then, there's the Crypt, which acts like a puzzle adventure game, where players can find dozens of references and nods to Mortal Kombat history. And if you've seen the sick combos people have made with the customizable movesets, Mortal Kombat 11 certainly has its fair share of flaws, but it does so much to make up for some of its mistakes.
You lack elegance and grace.
Number 3. Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 is a game that made the franchise what it is, with its significant improvement to the formula, including more special moves, more detailed character models and environments, and of course, new fatalities. Speaking of which, this is where bagalities and friendships were first incorporated. Another first for the series was the famous "Toasty" line, which would appear in almost every other game from here on out. There's so much to love here, and that's why Mortal Kombat 2 is the best of the original games.
Finish it. Superb. Marina wins.
Number 2. Mortal Kombat X.
Gotcha!
Of the more recent titles, Mortal Kombat X is certainly the odd one of the bunch. The story mode is polarizing due to its focus on newer characters and putting the Cage family in the spotlight. Admittedly, it is faster than previous installments, and the game is geared to a slightly more casual audience. However, it is still a fantastic fighter. Not only did it retain ideas introduced in the 2011 reboot, but it also borrowed the ideas of variants from Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon, turning them into distinct movesets. Basically, Mortal Kombat X succeeded in being a game that was easy to learn, yet difficult to master.
You got caged.
Before we continue, just a quick shout out to the strategy dystopian mobile game Arknights, where the major update Heart of Surging Flame has officially started. Players will kick off the event by choosing their favorite artists out of the 3 and claim the corresponding free gifts after finishing the milestone tasks. Explore a new music festival and see 2 new operators, Schwartz and Ceylon, along with multiple swimsuit character skins and furniture sets. Players who play the event stages can also redeem in-game resources from the event capsule machine for free, which is a perfect chance to collect items and develop their accounts. So don't miss out.
Number 1. Mortal Kombat 2011.
All right, it's showtime.
Round 1. Fight!
If you were to tell someone who knew nothing about the franchise where to start, we direct them straight to this game. Mortal Kombat 9 was a revival that the franchise desperately needed after Armageddon nearly killed the series. The story mode found a perfect blend of drama and campy humor, the fatalities were the goriest we'd seen in the series, and the introduction of a meter made for some interesting competitive play. This is the game that reminded everyone why Mortal Kombat kicks ass and helped it ensure a brighter future for the franchise as well as NetherRealm Studios. It was so good it was banned in Australia, and I hate whoever did that.
Let us tend the fallen. Then we must help our realm rebuild. Our work has only just begun.
In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.